Now, obviously, we are quite a bit behind with talking about the Acolyte. Episode 5 literally just dropped tonight. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the season so far, thoughts, opinions, theories. Obviously, some things were confirmed tonight that we probably would have had maybe different thoughts on last week. Maybe not. But let's go ahead and just jump into it. So we are talking The Acolyte. Clearly the most polarizing thing to come from Star Wars. I'd say since the prequels came out originally. Not how people feel about the prequels now when they came out. Because honestly, I don't even think that until we got to maybe Rise of Skywalker, what that the Star Wars fandom has been this completely fucked up. I'm just gonna say it. It has not been has not been kosher, not been cool. You know, regardless of your thoughts on, I'm just gonna say, regardless of your thoughts on the show. Hi, Rebel. Hey, joining us. He was very excited about the Acolyte. Clearly. Um, regardless of your thoughts on the show or the direction it's going, the one thing I just want to say real quick is, however you feel about Star Wars, Marvel, DC, whatever fandom or thing that you're into, quit being an asshole to the people that. Oh my God, do I need to take a moment, or is it
No,
the?
you're good.
Quit being assholes to people that enjoy stuff. You know what I mean? Like, if you dislike something, cool. You're more than welcome to talk about it. That's what opinions are for. That's what the internet's for. However, the way that the fandom has been targeting people lately has been very, very toxic, even by Star Wars standards, and I'm just not okay with that. I don't care if this is the best or worst show that's ever been done, or the best or worst thing that Star Wars has ever released, or that you've seen, or whatever your excuse is. There is no excuse for the way that some people are treating others within the fandom and beyond. I'm sure we'll touch a little bit more about that as we continue, but I'd rather focus on the show a little bit first. So now for the like I said, we're 5 episodes in now. We only have 3 episodes to go to wrap things up. Clearly, I feel like they've got a ways to go to do that, in my opinion, even with this episode. Just to kind of touch on some of the previous episodes, they dropped the first 2 right out the bat, so you could kind of get 1, 2, get a better feel for what the world that they're creating and putting you in with this High Republic era. But obviously, we're like getting to the end of the High Republic. Um, I'm not very versed in the High Republic in the sense of, like, I haven't read all the books. I know a little bit from watching videos online and things like that. But this is supposed to be when the Jedi are at their highest power. They have the most influence in the galaxy, the most control, if you will. And clearly that is exemplified by what they're trying to show with um, whether you're talking about like early on with the way that they interact with certain people, or especially when you get to like episode 3 with the way that they're interacting with the witches, and how they say that, the Jedi are the only ones that are supposed to train force sensitive children, and things like that. So clearly, like, we're getting this, we're getting a lot of this, that the Jedi are, I don't know how to say this in the best way possible, but it's not just that we're saying like, oh, the Jedi are actually bad. It's just they've been at such a high power for such a long time, and they've kind of, like, if you want to say, like, drank the Kool-Aid a bit too much, to the point where they're so inundated with the Jedi Order and the rules and the way their beliefs, if you will, that I think that we're seeing a little bit of like the blindness, and that's what's essentially being alluded to, of, in my opinion, that we're getting to, of why things are able to be manipulated down the line when we get to the prequel era with like Palpatine and things like that, because they're being blinded by their own like
Hubris.
hubris. Thank you. That's the word I couldn't think of. So Brandon, I know you have very strong opinions about this show. Like I said, I kind of want to get to episode 5 like in a few minutes. Just as far as up until today, what have been your thoughts on the show? What if you have any theories or anything like that that you want to speak on as far as this goes?
So off the bat with the show, like I told you, and it's
and told all y'all in the previous podcast, which actually we haven't done one since Acolyte came out. So the last time you heard me talk about it, I was extremely hopeful about this, and I was like, I think my exact words were something along the lines of, I haven't been this excited for a Star Wars project in a long time, or something along those lines. And I personally feel, as a fan all my life, that this is probably the worst thing that Star Wars has put out. And I have a lot of reasons for that. I honestly, it stems from really all sides of this, not just what I believe are lore breaks, what, people are saying online about it, what the IMDb score is at right now. It's the whole, all sides of this. How that starts, I feel like, is from the forefront of the actors. Now, Ashlyn said something earlier with regards to Jurassic Park that I feel like is very important here. A lot of these actors are not Star Wars fans. A lot of these actors don't even know Star Wars, and they're being thrust into it. And this is stuff that they have personally admitted. I can't speak about the director. I'm not so sure. She seems like she's kind of well versed on it, which is kind of
From what
shocking
I've
from what
seen
I've.
from interviews, I'm not saying she's the person, but she
Yeah.
is pretty well versed in Star Wars.
So it kind of begs to question why the casting was the way that it was for some of these people. I don't know them from anything, which can be a good thing. I take that back, with the exception of Soul, because he is, of course, Squid Game. We know him from
Or X-23.
X-23.
She's
Really?
the Padawan.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that.
I
Interesting.
mean, you wouldn't know because of the face paint and everything like
Yeah.
that, but
So my complaints for this started pretty early on when I watched it, because when episode 1 dropped, I guess I should back up even further than that. When they were dropping trailers for this show, we got glimpses of Carrie Ann Moss as what looked like a very leading role of this
oh,
show.
I know. As soon as that first episode dropped, I told Ashlyn, I was like, "Oh, Brandon's pissed." I
Yeah,
already,
I was, because I'm a big fan of her. And when they pretty much killed her off in like 15 minutes, I'm like, there's got to be more to this. There's got to be more to this. Like, she's not really dead. Like, I'm just kind of running, like, almost like the disbelief in my mind, which I feel like as a fan I shouldn't have in the first 15 minutes.
mm-hmm.
Then I'm like, why did they do that? They hired her, an A-list celebrity, to me at least, A, B list, whatever, of Hollywood celebrities, to just kind of waste your character. And they could have gotten that for anybody. And it kind of like then puts it in my perspective, like, okay, you just hired her just for the clout of having her in the show. There was no point for her being in this. With all that said, with Carrie Ann Moss, it just feels like that they had a really good thing there that they could have just excelled with. If you really wanted to think about it this way, you could really substitute her out for Soul, and she could have done the exact same job he did, maybe better. I don't know. We'll never know. But it's absolutely wasted for her.
I do agree with that.
Aside from that, I will tell you, the first 2 episodes, Kat and I were looking at each other like, why is this getting so much hate? This is not that bad of a show. And so we're going through it. I really don't have any big complaints about episodes 1 and 2, other than they wasted Carrie Ann Moss as a character.
Right.
But then season 3 hit.
Episode 3.
Or I'm sorry, episode 3 hit, and I was just like, we looked at each other and we're just like, there it is. That's why there's so much hate. But the hate was started before that. I again don't understand why too much. But they did fall very, very flat with episode 3. There is of course a lot of circulation about and just people bitching and bitching about how it feels like that they've broken Anakin's character arc, because he was the chosen one, conceived by the Force. That whole backstory. Won't go into it, but and now 2 witches achieved that 100 years prior. There's a lot of ways that they could really work their way out of it to make sense for the Phantom Menace. But it begs the question, why did they do it in the first place when they could have done anything else? Why did they go for that? It kind of stuck a dagger right in the right in the heart of the fans that like are that heavy into the lore, And it's just like, why would you touch that? It's almost like I heard somebody say it a while ago. It's like it's almost sacred territory you don't want to go towards, and they kind of did. And there's just not a lot of reasoning for me that they would do that. But my biggest complaint about that episode was that goddamn, like, I don't even know what to call it, the chanting scene. That was probably the cringiest thing I've seen in all of Star Wars, where they're the power of one, the power of two, the power of many. Not because of what they were doing, but because it was so goddamn out of key. Like, as a musician, I don't know if you caught that, bro, but the vocals are so all over the place. It's like ear wrenching.
Yeah, they were like purposefully like off key.
It made no sense.
And like, I'm not saying it made sense, but I'm just saying like they were like purposefully off key, and you had like the one person randomly go like that.
Yeah, and it was just cringy. I mean, I don't know what else to say about that. It was just,
and it's like we've seen similar stuff with like the Witches of Dathomir, as far as like when they use the magic and stuff like that.
Yes,
but it just didn't come off the same way. And obviously, I understand that they're trying to differentiate the two, but I think they missed the mark as far as like the execution of the moment, you know. And I don't even know if the way that they went about it was necessary. Like they could have said the same, like the mother, right? The lead, the black woman, could have literally said that chant, but like the power of one, the power of two, the power of many, and then everyone else go the power of many, and that's it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that would have been, to me, that would have been way better, in my opinion. Just with that, you could have had the same effect, but done differently, and had a better turnout. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So
now I want to hear real quick, just since we're talking about this, I want to turn it over to.
Here, but
I'm sure you do.
I'll be happy to stop whenever. So
I'm just gonna pause here. I want to go to my resident witch of the household, Ashlyn.
You just call your wife a witch.
She is a witch. Like a good witch, like you know,
like Hocus Pocus witch.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not the eating children thing, but you know.
Maybe. Listen, just because we don't want children doesn't mean that I'm luring them and eating them.
Hey, what you do in your house is your deal, man.
Listen, she's a hex girl, and she's gonna put a hex on you.
Fair enough.
Anyway, Ashlyn, not just this episode, but your thoughts on like the first couple episodes and then leading up to this point of the Acolyte.
I don't have strong opinions about this. I'm kind of just along for the ride. Like, it's been interesting. As far as getting this whole like new side of Star Wars. But yeah, I agree with the whole like the chanting scene was very weird and cringy, and I wasn't for it. I honestly kind of want to know more about the witches and everything.
I'm with you.
Like,
I'm with you on
what they're all about, like what this faction is, because I feel like we still don't really know that much about them. And I'm with where we're going with the story, I don't think we're going to get any more backstory on them. I have a feeling it's just they're this mystical force using witches that, you know, call the force a different name. But they've pretty much, I feel like, have told the story they want to tell about them, as far as from the director's point of view of there's just these two twins that are like this whole kind of like a dyad in the force, but not like, I don't think to the same point that we had with Rey and Kylo, of course, but I don't know. It's just all very kind of like, it's interesting, I guess, but it's not really something that has any weight to it for me that I'm going to be like, yeah, I want to go back. Like, I also don't feel like it, unless something big is about to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to like have any impact on the overall story of Star Wars. And that's saying something that's a huge fan of Jedi Adventures and the fact that, you know, the Young Jedi Adventures, I feel like has more of an impact and you get better storytelling as far as like that era of the Jedi, which I think is Old Republic?
High Republic.
High Republic. Yeah. It's the High Republic.
Those are like, so this is 100 years before the Phantom Menace. What you're talking about is like another 100 years prior from this. give or take, like something along those lines. It's like 200 years before Phantom
Mhm.
Menace, and then this story is like 100 years before Phantom Menace, like
Yeah.
in that ballpark. But I
I just
understand what you're saying as far
like
as that goes.
I feel like you get a lot better understanding of the Force and the Jedi at that time through a kid show that is split with two different stories within the same episode
Mm-hmm.
of, and you have a better understanding of what's going on in the galaxy and everything with that than I do with this, because we're so focused on two people in this specific story. But basically, from my understanding, based off what the newest episode is this is all having to do with the rise of the Sith at this point. And so I guess that's the story they're trying to tell through Asha and her sister.
So just to touch on a couple things you mentioned. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get a huge explanation on the witches, like you were saying.
Mm-mm.
I do. Sorry, I know basically for a fact that we're going to get a retelling of the story we got before in episode 3 from the different perspective, because there is a whole side to that story that hasn't been told yet. And that's the thing that they've been alluding to time and time again with Osha's master, or well,
Mhm.
ex-master. And like the story that he's like, I will tell you the truth. I will tell you what's going on or what happened. It's like there is big chunks missing from that story, because it was episode 3 was pretty much all from Osha's perspective and
Okay.
like her understanding of the events that played out on her planet with her family and everything like that. We don't know if you look at the witches, like they say they died in the fire. They don't look like they got burned.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
They look like they either died from possible like lightsaber wounds or just a battle or something like that in general that played out. I don't know to what degree. I'm not saying that I know everything that's going to happen, but I know we're going to get that other half of the story, because there's also things. I know there's some things that with trailers, whether you're talking about movies or otherwise, that like some things that are in trailer that might not actually show up in the movie, but usually when it comes to like TV shows, they're a little bit more spot on. Like if they show it in a trailer, you're probably going to see it in the show. There's clips from previous trailers with the Jedi that were on her planet that we have not seen yet. There was a clip from one trailer in particular where the Wookiee Jedi is facing off with the Padawan and stuff like that, and we have not seen that play out yet.
Yep.
And I was telling Ashlyn that I know we'll see something because of that. But that's why I was like, if I don't see the Wookiee Jedi actually fucking fight, then I will be very upset, because
How
that's
can you if he's can we
no,
talk
no,
about
no, the flashback. I'm saying
gotcha.
this
Yeah.
will be a flashback, like from when we get that other half of the story that hasn't
Yeah.
been told. We'll see that scene play out finally. But that's what I'm saying. Like, if I don't at least get that, then I'll be more upset than probably, well, maybe not than anybody, but then most people, just because of that, because I was very excited about the Wookiee Jedi situation actually being in live action for a change. But I'm sorry, you were saying you wanted to touch on, like
I was
moving forward.
Yeah, no, I was gonna add a point to that, but being that that's where your mind was, it's not really relevant. So if you had more to say on that, go ahead.
No, I mean, so you and I have been very back and forth on everything through Messenger, and because we haven't been able to do this show in a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
and so we've been having very long discussions and stuff like that, because you're the only person other than my wife I can talk to about this stuff, because you're actually
Damn you,
in it.
Josh.
Yeah. Stupid Josh.
Yeah.
Every time he's just like, Jesus
Fucking
Christ, you guys have a lot to
Marvel
say.
guys.
Like literally every time he's just like, man, y'all are writing books in this place.
It's because I grew up with this. I mean, I fell into Star Wars at a very young age, and it just like I was the nerdy dumb kid that like drew the characters, the side characters, read the lore on Wikipedia about
I love Wikipedia.
about like Jedi's like Kit Fisto and Plo Koon and stuff long before Clone Wars expanded on them. Like I knew of just dumb stuff like Kit Fisto could breathe underwater. I knew about that before it was ever told in Clone Wars. So yeah, that's the extent of where I come from on this. So it's like when I see something not go according to what like I've always known in Star Wars, it's just like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, and I think if they really ask the fans, especially now since Clone Wars has come out, and they have gone into a lot of the backstory that normally we would not have had before, it sucked more fans from this generation to do exactly what I was doing back then. And it that's the side that they aren't seeing when they're making a lot of these shows. I'm not going to say all of them, because, you know, I know you cracked a joke a while earlier before the thing saying, like, you know, I haven't liked anything post sequels or whatever. And that's not true. But I will
I was
say,
just giving you a hard time
no, and
about that.
it's totally cool. Like, I don't take any offense at all. But I will say, with respect to that, there has been a lot that I have not been happy with, having grown up with it. It's like watching, you know, your parents divorce in a really odd fashion. It's like, you know,
You
I'll
get
say
two Christmases, but not every Christmas is gonna be
that's
good.
exactly
You know what I'm
it.
saying?
Yeah. Because it's like, you know, I'm sitting here being the hopeful fan, waiting for something good to happen. And that happened with The Mandalorian. I'd say even with myself, outside of the whole fucking fan base, it seems like Ahsoka, I really loved. There were my own complaints about it, but, you know, as a series, it scratched that itch that I had. And
Mhm.
especially with Clone Wars, Rebels, like there was so much that came out that, like, I'm just like, they are doing it. They're doing it so right. And of course, The Mandalorian. It's like, it's we've had more good than bad. I have my differences with the sequels, as you know, but overall, I will say we're not doing too bad as a franchise. And this one, I just can't get behind. I have a lot more points here, but, you know, if you're ready to move on to, I guess it would
If there's
be.
other things you want to talk about with the first couple episodes, feel free.
I that's pretty much it for the first couple episodes. 3 is kind of where I'm at in my notes right now, because I wrote all this on Sunday thinking we were going to record, and then
Right.
things happen. But yeah, that was kind of where I was at. So episode 3 is where I'm at right now.
Okay.
There was a lot of complaints about this one. And it was the whole Kiadi Mundi thing. I felt like him being in the show, one, was completely pointless. I was really excited to see him, but then there was that thing in the back of my head saying, why is he here? He shouldn't be here. This does not make sense. You know, I will say, I think the fans were jumping the gun on this a little too hard, because the lore that came from his birth date was only introduced in a set of canon accurate, still, but trading cards. That's the only
Mm.
trace of this, where people are like, no, his birthday says blah, 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 this was it, the year he was born. And I think nipping apart that is a little too drastic, because, you know, as the lore expands, you know, Wikipedia adapts, you know, and that's
Mhm.
where a lot of these fans go in to get their knowledge from. And it pissed off so many people when they saw him in the show. The moment it dropped, from what I was seeing on TikTok and shit, like Wikipedia took his birth date off, or his birth year off. It's not even
Mhm.
on there, to what I know now. So it's like, you know, you're watching this stuff change in real time. It's pissing a lot of people off. I can totally see it. I do think there's a bit of an overreaction on that. So,
Yeah, because I
um,
think the reason that happened, I agree, it wasn't necessary. But I think the reason that they, well, not the reason that they did it, but I'll just say the whole thing with his birthday thing, that they're not sticking to like a trading card thing, was that they're, because I saw a video where someone was talking about him, and they said that in the lore they have, and this is probably something that's been expanded on since things like Clone Wars and other stuff like
yeah,
that, that his people do live for a long time,
yeah,
like not as long as Yoda or anything like that,
yeah,
but
but they're 100 years
longer,
plus, you
yeah,
know.
longer than like a human life type of
Hmm.
thing. Like, let's say they were upwards of 150 to 200 years, or something
Sure.
like that.
And
But
this is
just
Star
ballpark
Wars,
it.
so you can change that sort of stuff and still be
Right.
okay. I don't hate them for that. What I do
What
think that they
character is this that y'all are
He's the one with
talking
the
about?
really long head with like the
Oh,
ponytail thing
oh,
coming out
you'll
the
okay,
top.
yeah,
you'll
yeah.
you'll probably understand it from what I'm about to say next, and realize who it is. Um, I don't blame them for putting him in there for that. What I blame them for is because, um out of all the characters on the Jedi Council, he was the one in episode 1 that said the Sith have not been seen, acknowledged, heard about in 1,000 years. That was paraphrased, but basically exactly what he said. And so it's like, I'm holding out on hope now, and I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe this dark character we're seeing with a red lightsaber is not a Sith. We've seen it with Inquisitors. They're not Sith. So maybe they're introducing some everything. So I'm kind of like, I'm going through it in my head, like maybe it's not.
Or like in Ahsoka with those characters.
Yeah, exactly. It's like maybe it's some other form. And then this episode tonight was just like, I was just like, you fuckers, you just had to go there. And then he called himself a Sith. I'm like, God damn it.
So here's what I'm going to mention as far as what you're saying with that specifically is that at that point, they can't even fathom Sith. It doesn't even cross their mind. That's why, like, the young guy was saying.
I was going to touch on next.
Well, I'm just saying, like, even the young guy's like, I don't even know what this guy is, or and things like this. So that's why I'm saying, like, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, they're in their heads, they're like, oh, this must be a rebel faction of Jedi.
Yeah,
that I remember him saying, or him
something
and the other
like
person
that. You're
saying,
not a Jedi. What are
like,
you? And then he,
well, no. I'm saying
you wield the weapon of a Jedi, but you're not a Jedi, or something.
No. I'm talking about the long-haired guy, the Gary Mundi, whatever.
Yeah.
When they're in the council chamber or whatever it is. Not the council chamber, but the little war room. Him and the lady next to him are speaking. They're like, "Oh, maybe this is some sort of like splinter faction of a Jedi cell or something like that we're just not aware of because they can't even think of the fact that it could be a Sith, and they don't know that what these people come across. That's why, like, and this is kind of jumping to this episode. That's why I know everyone has to fucking die because in order for this to play out the way that we know it plays out. Basically, everyone in this show has to die, and clearly they pretty much did that with this episode alone. And that's why I don't think it breaks anything with that part in particular, with his character having been in the room, because they don't even say the word Sith in front of him. Nobody does.
That's what kind of is piquing my curiosity even further, though, because this is the High Republic. You could look at this one of two ways. The first way is I'm gonna guess here, maybe the way that you're thinking of it, which is that the Jedi, the High Republic that's been going on for 1,000 years right now, or so we know. Who knows? I might change. I don't know. But let's just say 1,000-year increment, right? Let's just say they've become so deculturalized to the Sith that it's not taught. However, where I view it as right now is this is the prime time for the Jedi, okay, to go as a Padawan to a Jedi Knight to a Master. There's got to be some level of instruction and learning, not just in terms of like training and combat, which we saw a little bit, but also there's that academic side. Okay, Padawans have to learn about the nature of the Jedi, the dark side, the light side. Well, what goes along with the dark side? The Sith. And so it's like to have Jedi that are so oblivious to a Sith, having Soul as what I view as one, the redeeming factor of this show, but two, the guy that is like, he is a very, very wise master. He's teaching Padawans, to have him look at somebody and just like be oblivious, like, what are you? It's like, dude, come on. Like, to me, it's just like, I just can't get in the headspace of the Jedi Order have fallen so far to the point of where it's like you don't even talk about Sith.
And I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
That's such a hang up for me right now.
I have a. This is where all this like expanded lore stuff gets very complicated, and I think I won't know this until down the line when I go and read everything. But I've picked up on certain things that play out in the, like, I think it's like 200 or 300 years that the books are covering with the High Republic.
Yeah.
That there's certain things that play out that really change the Jedi Order.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure
in a very negative way, but they never deal with Sith. They deal with some dark forces, if you will, or like dark force users in a sense. But they don't wield lightsabers. They don't wield anything like that. So it's like, I'm with you, but it's like it's almost I don't know what has happened is the problem. Like
Yeah.
because there's still a bit of the story that hasn't even been released yet. We're in the I think the final phase of those books coming out, but it's still the next like year or so
Mm-hmm.
that they're going to hit. And maybe by the time we get to that point, we'll have some sort of explanation as to why the Sith have turned into Voldemort, and they don't talk about it.
I think they're gonna have to hit on that because that is a
Yeah.
huge plot hole right now.
Yeah, and maybe
and
it's already there, and I don't know about it, but I
To your
just know
credit,
that
I will
like
say
that.
there's not. I hate to say that to you, but
Yeah.
there's not. I've looked into this already because I've been like every little thing that's just itching at me, I'm trying to search up answers for, and
Mhm.
I have not found any. I've
Yeah.
looked into the High Republic lore a little bit, not as much as straight up reading the novelizations and whatever, but I don't see anything that that answers my question, which is why are they so oblivious? You
Right.
know, so so that's one really big plot hole for me. But another thing for the it was the last episode. We're talking about episode this was 5, but we're talking about 4 right now.
Mhm.
It goes off of one that you already mentioned, but I was extremely disappointed when they didn't even show anything but a dead Wookiee on screen. And I'm just like, God damn it, what are they doing?
That's the
I
thing that has disappointed me the most out of anything in
yeah,
this entire show.
yeah, that's a big one for me too. Again, we see him in the trailers, we see him in the flashbacks, and it's like, they hyped it up. Like it could have been maybe not necessarily Disney hyping it up, but definitely the fan base was super excited for this. And it's just it kind of feels like a slap in the face so far. Again, who knows what could happen, but so far right now it's just like wasted. Just like
Yeah.
Carrie Ann Moss's character. I'm like, okay, they could have done something different there.
Ashlyn, do
And
you have any thoughts on this
yeah, I'm
whole
so
like?
sorry, Ashley.
No,
You're
it's
good,
fine.
You're good.
I just realized we hadn't heard from her in a minute. Do
Yeah.
you have any thoughts on this whole like understanding of the Sith, like the Jedi maybe being oblivious or arrogant, if you will, to this dark side of the Force and things like? Do you have any thoughts on that whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, it is frustrating that they're like completely like you guys said, they're either not being taught about it or it's like,
Well, if it doesn't if it's not in the archives, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Exactly. that old bitch is still there. She's very young
still
right
there.
now.
now.
She's still there,
Yeah.
like but she's like, no, Obi-Wan,
No,
fuck
go
you.
fuck
She's like, sorry.
Oh my gosh. That was a good callback.
Thank you.
Well needed.
But yeah, no, it just seems like it almost is just like if they're like a long time ago, there were these bad people
Yeah.
called the Sith. But they have no power now because we triumphed over them and
Yeah, it's like they
stamped
treat them like
out.
a myth as opposed to the
Yeah.
reality of what they were, type of thing.
It
Yeah.
could be.
At best, and that's just a guess. Like I'm just trying. I'm pulling at straws. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like trying to find the reason.
Me too.
But
that's where
but
I'm
I
at.
don't, and I don't know that we're gonna get the reason in this show. I don't know.
Disappointing.
I don't know that we're gonna get the reason in the books. Like I said, the excuse could just be that it's been a millennia.
Yeah.
Since they've dealt with them, and they're like, well, no, they're extinct. It's impossible for them to come back. You know what I mean? Like, so we won't even talk about them.
So that side is like their hubris, right?
Yeah.
The fact that they think they've triumphed, there's no way they could ever come back. And the only sign of, the dark side of the Force is just these dark Force wielders that they might come across or
like the witches or otherwise, things like that.
But that's the part that really agitates me, is that they view anything that is not the Jedi as being like, in a sense, like a dark force, or like not allowed to use the
yeah,
Force.
that they're not nobody else but the Jedi can wield the Force.
And that comes off very, very much like an allegory for the Christian faith to me, and the way that I see it in a certain way. Not to throw offense, just like and
I didn't follow that one at all. I'm sorry.
Blow the shit up, Ashlyn.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, I was thinking the government, but yeah, definitely.
It's that hand in hand of where we are now in today's time frame of it's the whole morals and religion are tied together, and that you can't have one without the other. And so it's that form of what the Christian faith is that we see nowadays, that and the lack of thinking that we can coexist with other religions, and it's this is the right way because that's what they've been taught. So that's just my perception of it, and a perception of somebody who no longer is involved in that religion, and seeing how a lot of people, not all people, but a lot of the toxic Christianity that's out there right now is that because in that religion it's this is the only right way and everybody else is wrong type thing. And
Well, and see, and it doesn't matter if you see it as
would love The Boys season 4. Just
see,
saying.
like, it doesn't matter if you see it as religion based, if you see it as government based, or anything like that. That's kind of the point, I think, of this, or what was the point, if you will, of this series, is for you to kind of question certain things, question the Jedi Order, because it is a religion. Question the Jedi Order in a sense, because they're at the will of the Senate, even at this point. Like, not as much by the time as we get to the prequels, but it's getting there. Like, they talk about it a little bit. They allude to it, that they're
that's
still
kind of what I feel like they're missing a little bit out of this show. Is that Senate interaction that
well, I think because we're still kind they're trying to stay disconnected.
Yeah.
Because the way they talk about it, like the green character, the way she talks about, like, if we do this or if we talk about this, we have to go bring it to them, and we don't want to do that. We want to remain our own and keep things, like, close to the chest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, as opposed to, we get to the prequel era, it's like, oh no, you are in the Senate, especially because we obviously get the Clone Wars, and then everything changes. But yeah, they're not as involved with the Senate at this point, but it's starting to get there. You can see the seeds, but because we're not getting enough time there, you're not getting all of those notes. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's kind of brushed over in a sense, but yeah, it's difficult. Let's go ahead. Brandon, do you have anything else as far as episode 4 before we move on to today's episode? Because, like I said, a lot of this we would have talked about theories, but today kind of spoiled some theory talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's future theories to talk about, but the initial theories have been spoiled more or less. But please continue.
This one kind of goes from last week's episode into this week's episode. And it was just a complaint that I personally had, and it's just like, the fuck just happened? Like, okay, so at the close to the end of the last episode, you see May literally first off, this kind of pissed me off, because I was like, okay, her whole character arc is pointless. But then they reversed it. It's just kind of like a whirlwind of what the fuck's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Where May, out of all of that, I'm gonna kill the Jedi. I'm gonna kill the Jedi. Blah, 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 like, so fucking aggressive. Then it's just like, I'm gonna surrender to the Jedi. I'm gonna let them take me. They're not gonna, I'm gonna do this. This is the right thing to do. And I was like, who the fuck is this? Like, what's going on? Like, your whole backstory is pointless right now. And then immediately, that's where they kind of left it off with last week's episode. With this week's episode, they picked it up, and it's like, that never happened. She never said those words. It was not even a forefront of their mind. To then, and this is kind of jumping a little bit forward, but where she literally, like, does the polar opposite and stays hidden. It's like, okay, you had your opportunity to come clean. You could have, like, it's just like, what kind of writing is this?
I know what you mean in that sense.
So here, then there, then there, then there. It's just like all over the place and not structurally sound.
It's like, the excuse they would make is that, seeing her sister changed everything for her, is what the excuse would be, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what changed her mindset. And she's like, Osha being alive changes everything for me. And I need to be with my sister. I need to do whatever I can to be with her and write this in a sense. But then when the master shows up, it's like, it changes everything. Like, but you're right. Like, the writing wise, it wasn't enough there.
No,
It's just and this is another thing. It's like, okay, I'm assuming if I was talking to, let's say, the writer, director, whoever, they'd be like, oh well, then she went into fight or flight mode, and she's like, I need to get as far away from this fucker as possible because he's here and he knows what I'm trying to do.
Sure.
But that doesn't justify everything that she's doing
No.
or explain everything that
Not
she's
even
doing.
close.
So
Yeah.
so I'm with you
Yeah.
on that. I'm just trying my best
Yeah,
to
I get
fill
it.
in the plot holes
This is
and like try and understand it as best I possibly
this is all, like kind of where my basis is that we as fans shouldn't be having to do this dissecting, trying to branch here and there and trying to figure out to make sense of clear plot holes. Like this
can.
isn't just what's going to happen next episode. This is like okay, they fucked up here. How are we going in my mind I want to correct it.
Yeah.
To me that's doing a fan's disservice.
Because at
That's
first
kind of the
she's just trying
premise.
to fight to get away, but then she actually tries
Yeah.
to kill the Padawan a couple of times, and you're like,
Yeah.
what is happening right now?
Exactly. So it's like I know I text all this out. I try my best. I'm not the best eloquent texter, so I can't like voice all of these very well. But that is the premise of where I am at right now as a fan. Is like it's just like it's too much. It's too much trying to patch up their fuck ups.
Yeah.
So kind of moving on from that point. This is more of a smaller thing for me that I noticed tonight. What the fuck was the deal with the deactivator on the helmet for the lightsabers? I'm just like, what the fuck was that about? It's like
Like when
why
you would headbutt everything, right?
headbutt and the lightsaber turns off. I was like, what fucking thing is this? Like that is just so bizarre to me. Like
I don't know if it was like if it was a deactivator, like
because it fried,
that it
but
was
then it
supposed.
came right back on. I'm like, what's the
Yeah,
point? Why would they even
I don't.
include this?
That's why I was like, I don't know if it's supposed to be like a jammer thing or if it's
I think
like
that's
Ashlyn
what it
was trying
was. Yeah.
to figure out. She's like, is his helmet made of Bastar because
Yeah.
it's like holding up to these lightsabers? You know what I mean? Like,
That's another point too. Yeah, I didn't
yeah.
even think about that point, but that's a good point too.
Yeah.
But it was the deactivation that I was just like, are they gonna talk about this? Like, are they gonna explain this? Like,
I do hope they do. They
I do
talk about it
too,
at some
but
point.
it's just like to just kind of throw that in out of left field. It's like, okay, and this is one point I wanted to touch on later, but it kind of ties in now, and it's a good thing. I think the choreography is outstanding in this
Yeah.
show for the lightsaber battles. Like that was one thing I mentioned in one of the previous podcasts that I really wanted to see out of this show was good lightsaber battles because we did not get that with Ahsoka. I'm sorry, we didn't get that with Ahsoka, and we haven't had it for a long time. And I'm glad that they put that in there, and I'm glad that they actually worked and trained very well and very hard to make that happen because it paid off. So then again, why are we having lightsaber headbutts that like deactivate when you could just fill that time, as small as it is, with like really good choreography to just do the fan service? Like it was just a pointless thing to me. I know it's a small complaint, but it's still one that just like it kind of left me just like, what the fuck are they doing?
It was interesting. I had to rewind it the first time he did it
Yeah.
to see what the fuck he just did because I kind of missed it and I was like, wait, why are their lightsabers not working?
Yep.
And so I had to rewind and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. You know,
Yeah.
it's just
I
like
mean,
you just
it's
headbutt something.
interesting. Like
It's
but he
different,
also
you
had
know.
one on like his
Different.
arm too. So I'm just like,
Yeah.
but what is it? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we definitely
Exactly.
need an explanation about that material
They're
or
throwing
whatever it is he's doing.
a little too much in there. That's just like, okay, even to the seasoned fans, they're just like what it's very confusing.
Can we just say like at the very end of episode 4 when he shows up though, that's a sick entrance.
Yeah, I think
it was
I
like a
told
fucking
you.
horror film, dude.
I-
like with the hover down and
Yeah,
then just
which I will say, kudos to the fans for dubbing this guy Smilo Ren because that is fucking amazing. I love it.
I've been
love it.
hearing Darth Smile or no
Darth
Darth
Smile.
Teeth. Darth Teeth.
Teeth.
That-
Yeah,
That's what it was. Darth Teeth. And I'm
Darth-
like, I like that one.
Darth Teeth is good, but I saw that on one comment. I was like, Smilo Ren. I was like, God, I hate myself for not thinking of that first. But
It's
so
because of
good.
the rebuilt, thing
Yeah, and
like
the
he has.
little-
Which is like I know that yes, it's of course it's a callback to the Kylo Ren thing, but it's also because they're leaning heavy with this series with like some of the old samurai films, and it's an
Yeah.
old samurai technique, the type of like I believe like Japanese thing where they use metal or like gold to meld metal pieces together, but I can't remember what the practice is
Yeah,
called.
I know what you're talking about because
It's
I remember
also
them.
for like repairing things. Like if you break
Yeah.
a plate and you paint it with gold after you glue it back
It's
together,
supposed to
type
like
thing.
make it more unique or something like that. I remember reading about that when episode 9 came out and like the whole backstory on why they decided to do it that way.
Hmm.
And it was, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I remember them talking about it and saying that it's an ancient art that basically shows that like the scars of the past or whatever are present.
Yeah.
You know, some of it, you know, whatever. But yeah, I know what you mean, and that's pretty
Yeah,
cool. Talking
but
about oh go ahead. Go
no,
ahead.
no, no. I
I
was
was
gonna
leading
say,
into the
go
next
ahead.
point.
Hmm.
Do you have anything else? I didn't want to cut you off.
No, no, I was literally just gonna say, yeah, I just thought that entrance was really cool, very,
Yeah.
very creepy and well done for like a Sith character. Something like never really see like that real creepy side play out
Yeah.
too much. And even though it was literally like 60 seconds, that was enough for me to be like,
very
that
well
was
done.
cool.
Yeah, it was very well done, and it's like I believe I told you. I might have told somebody else, but that was my favorite episode so far. The last episode 4 was. I was just like, this is good. They might actually, you know, do whatever and make it something worthwhile. But kind of leading more into this today's episode, I will say that the enemy, you know, reveal was the most predictable thing, just because you have like everybody that is relevant in this show, with the exception of the witches, which we know are not Jedi, know are not Sith. You know, we see everybody that is present in the show in this spot. It literally could not be anybody else. It
Yeah.
couldn't have been, unless they're going to introduce a brand new character. It was like, you know, I looked at Kat. I was like, of course it's fucking him. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like it's almost like we knew that was going to happen.
Well, they pretty much confirmed it for us last episode with the way they were making him act and the things they were having him say. He was kind of playing that like Palpatine role in a sense of like acting like, oh, I'm the you know timid, frail person, but I'm reminding you of certain things and the reason why you're doing some of this stuff, and I'm always here like pestering you in the back of your head type of thing, and then I'm going to pretend that, oh no, I'm caught. No, I'm, you know, it's him. We all knew for like the last couple episodes that it was him. You know what I mean?
Which to me, it's like, you know, kind of a waste. I feel like they could have built that up a little bit better and left a little bit more mystery, instead of borderline giving it away with having all the Jedi there at once. And it's like, you know, I don't know. To me, I think they could have gone a little bit better route of like maybe even having one of those Jedis that did get slaughtered. Like even what's his name, Yord. Like I was kind of pulling for him to be the enemy because I'm like, he gives off some creepy vibes, bro. Like I don't know, we could see him being an enemy, and I
he's
think
too Boy Scout, you know.
Yeah, but I think that would have been the plot.
No, that I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm
Okay.
saying because he's so Boy Scout, we need that heel flip, you know.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. Like have a little Breaking Bad moment where it's just like it you know, the light switch goes off and you see the devil in his eyes, like something like that. But like it just feels like a wasted buildup to me to have him be that enemy. You know, I don't know how y'all feel about it, but let's
Ashland, what are your thoughts on the reveal of the I don't think he's the big bad, but the bad of right now.
The bad of right now. Yeah, I mean, I think we all talked about it, and I think we all, like you said, knew he was going to be the one. I'm just still shook that it's just the tweaker little dude from The Good Place. Like, I just
Blake what is it?
Blake Bortles.
Bortles, yeah.
He reminds me too much of Ezra Miller. I'm sorry. He just does.
He does kind of have that look. Yeah, I thought that was...
Dude, he got ripped for this though. Like they had him covered up the whole time, and then I saw his arm and I was like, shit. I was like, dude's been working out. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, because he was like this big in you know, The Good Place. Like, he was such a little like crackhead looking dude, and now he's like ripped. Like
crackhead Ren.
So yeah, I
Those
mean,
aren't teeth; they're like crack crystals. You know.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's like I have enjoyed his acting though, and I thought it was interesting. You know, you guys talking about him flipping back and forth when he does like the little callback to the little like squirrely guy voice for a minute when
Mhm.
after the reveal. So I'm liking the psychology part of it, and I think like he's doing a good job. I just don't. I'm like, is he really a Sith though? I feel like he's claiming to be a Sith, but I don't know that he is a Sith. Like,
That
If there
brings me
is,
to my next point. I'm
yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
Brandon. I'm going to cut you off. We kind of touched on this before the show started, and I know that you and I have differing opinions with the whole like rule of two, right? With the Sith. Here's the thing. So and you're not the only person to bring this up.
Yeah.
Now the constant running theory is that Darth Teeth is not the big bad. He is
Mhm.
probably the apprentice to a different one. Now, possibly Darth Plagueis, possibly somebody else. We don't know.
well,
Plagueis
I
is the
mean, he
constantly
hinted
thing.
at that in the episode tonight. Like, there was I forget what part he mentions, and it kind of like makes a hint at the fact that, like,
Are you saying like when he's talking about like that the Sith are rising or something like that? Like I can't
well,
remember what he
he
said,
said
but
there's something to the effect that he said tonight to like he reports to somebody.
no, I don't
Like,
remember him saying that
Yeah.
specifically. And that,
I feel like
but
I would have caught that a little too,
yeah, if he had
on the
said that,
nose.
then 100%, I would know that my theory is just about fully baked. But I don't think he said anything that on point. He
yeah,
might
no,
have like
it wasn't like saying like,
I
oh,
think what
I
he
have
was
a
referring
master,
to
but
was
like,
talking about that like this something to the effect of like how like the Sith have a plan. Like you don't know what my plan is, or you don't
yeah,
whatever it is. But I don't think he's the mastermind. I don't think he is the master.
no.
I think he is the apprentice. And I know Brandon, you were saying that like, but there can't be a third. Like I mentioned before,
Yeah, I'll explain a little more later, but
yeah,
go ahead.
I know. I just want to say my piece is that Dooku had an apprentice. He
Yeah.
had Asajj, and because Sith always do this. Yes, there's the rule of two, but the apprentice always tries to get their own apprentice so they can overthrow the master, and the cycle repeats itself over and over and over again because ever since Darth Bane created the rule of two, that's just how it always works, and we get that even when even though well, no, I was going to say Palpatine didn't necessarily have an apprentice, but when he killed his master, we don't know. He could have maybe had an earlier one even before Darth Maul. Obviously, Darth Maul was his original one, but my point is that it's not just the Dooku one. There are other examples.
Well,
His
Maul
my
tries to make Ahsoka his apprentice at one point. Like he tries
that
to court
or
her.
Yeah,
even
well,
though
at that point
he's
he
like
was, yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
even though he's not necessarily trying to be a Sith,
Yeah.
but like it's alluding to something like that. But we have that. You have there's several examples
Yeah.
like that they've done, whether it be from Clone Wars or some of the novels and things like that, whether they are canon or now considered legends. That it is a constant running thing that this is just something that the Sith do. So I do wholeheartedly believe that he has a master, but he's just trying to play the master, and that's why he's keeping May at such a distance. Like he wouldn't even let her see his face, and like treating her like such a underling and not
Hmm.
worthy, and making her uh, prove herself time and time again to become his acolyte, to become his apprentice, and carry on this Sith tradition in a sense. But Brandon, you have some differing opinions, so I want to hear from you.
Not so much differing on that side of things in terms of what would break a lore in a sense. Like I didn't get a lot of time to explain it earlier, but like I'm kind of like a rule of two purist. And I will tell you when I watched Clone Wars, it did kind of strike me a little weird that happened. And it is one of my only complaints about Clone Wars is that they did decide to do that. The Dooku Asajj arc, or the Dooku Asajj arc, where he was kind of bypassing Palpatine a little bit to try to get that apprentice and overthrow it. I totally understand what you're saying about like that's kind of how it always is, how it's always been, but like to me, it just doesn't sit right having grown up a little bit differently and then being pushed into Clone Wars at a later age, and then having to kind of relearn a little bit of lore and kind of understand their adaptation. I guess when it comes down to it and that sort of things is like, lore expansion I'm okay with, but changing the lore a little bit does bug me. And I don't think that's something that's ever going to change with me being a fan in this series is like, you can absolutely expand, but I think, I should say, I don't think they would be closing themselves in a box if they did stick by the lore of Star Wars as it is right now and just expand,
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I was coming from on that. Is it, yes, technically, is it breaking lore? No, I mean, no, it's not technically breaking lore. No, but I actually am 100% with you on that. And I think that is the direction that they're going to go. I just personally do not care for that.
And it's also possible that now this is more legends based, but there is possibility that there's some canon talk about this as well. I'm finally reading some of the old Republic novels. Now they are legends now.
Yeah.
But the term acolyte is constantly used in that, and so they kind of touch that they're using some phrases and constantly, even if they're just words or references or something like that, they're pulling things from legends, even if as far back from like the old Republic era, being used whether in this or other things like Clone Wars, Rebels, things like that. Because in Clone Wars they have that episode where Yoda sees like a ghost figure of Darth Bane and things like that, and he learns about like the rule of two and things like that. So the reason I bring it up is because if maybe they weren't trying to do the whole cycle of things, and maybe she just is an acolyte, maybe she would never become a Sith. There were many acolytes within the Sith that were Force wielders, and they would even sometimes have lightsabers and things like that worked for the Sith, were part of the Sith, but weren't technically a Sith in the traditional sense of having the title of Darth or whatever you want to say. They were just like the dark Force wielders attached to the Sith itself. So I don't know. It could go either way. I do think it is probably leaning a little bit more towards like he's trying to like overthrow his master
that's
type of
kind
thing.
of where I'm thinking too.
Ashlyn, any thoughts on this before I touch on like my last theory bit here?
No, just kind of something to go back to like Brandon was bringing up with like the flip-flopping with May and like her decisions and things like that. It still kind of happened this episode too, where she was like running away and then she wasn't. And I don't know if it was like her in survival mode or whatever it was that she was trying to do. But also with like what the master was doing as well, as like at the very end of the episode after he was trying to kill her.
Yay!
How do you do that?
I don't know what I did.
I think you go like this, like that. Wait for it. No, is that not it? Okay.
I've never had that happen. It's only been on her end.
I forget how to do it, but
That's so
I
funny.
know there's a way to do
That's
it. Oh,
so funny.
this, right?
No,
This
that's the confetti.
No, that's confetti.
I don't even get that, man.
Just hold it there. Hold it there. That's so weird. Okay, let's move on. So
But yeah, like, I don't know, like just his whole attitude as far as like before he's like, I'm gonna kill her, and like he really genuinely seems like he was gonna kill her because she saw his face and everything for whatever reason, and then at the end he's just like putting his coat on her as she's unconscious on the ground.
Yeah,
we know that's Osha and not
Yeah.
May. It was just very strange trying to figure out what's going on with these characters and their motives and like what's happening with the flipping and the flopping. And I'm just
what's y'all's thoughts on the amount of death that there was in this episode?
There was a lot.
I have a let's see. I have an Yeah, that was one of my last points actually, was just the fact that I feel like they, this was something that was like finale based to me.
Yeah, for sure.
That should have been saved for the finale, and I feel like they just wasted it. On the good side of that, it might give a little bit more what's the word, timing, I guess, for 2 more
Mhm.
episodes is what we have, or 3?
3.
Sheesh. Okay, it might be dragged out then. But I was thinking about it at like the good and the bad about that is like the bad is that I just feel like right now at least all those characters that they introduced and hyped us up to, I really like the Padawan.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I
can't
feel
believe they killed her. I was shocked on that. Like,
yeah,
I
I'm
knew
just
she's
like
gonna die eventually, but I didn't think right now. You know what I mean?
I felt like that whole thing was very much pointless. Like why kill all of them off, at right now at least. I could see by the end of the series, but right now it just seems like that's a massive waste and now you're going to have to go on with your core group for 3 more episodes.
Oh,
That's
dude,
a
and the way
lot
that
to
he
get
killed
into.
her was so fucked, man. Like,
Yeah,
because
feels
I
good
know
though.
it showed that. I say like I know it showed that he had 2 lightsabers, but he
Mhm.
also, I'm almost certain, I don't remember the technique term, but there's a technique that is illegal to use with lightsabers where you turn it off and on type
Oh
of
yeah.
thing, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's what he did.
Hmm.
He was like boom, 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 like that with it to get the 3 holes in her because they were constantly like in and out way too quick.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way he's doing that with
Like I
his
said,
hand.
I have not had one single complaint on the choreography. The fight
Yeah,
scenes have been outstanding.
and then
Um,
snap that dude's neck. Like, holy
yeah,
shit.
yeah, which it's like him as well. Like going off of what I was mentioning a second ago, it's like they really pushed for his character as well,
Hmm.
like this introducing him, kind of getting the backstory that yes, he knows OSHA and that there is a tie in there, they're old friends and whatever, and it just feels so pointless now. I mean, I didn't like his character. I'll be flat out honest. I thought
Yeah,
I hated a lot about his character. But I'm like, why did you even do it in the first place? For those people who actually wanted to know his character, it's really pointless right now. I mean, um, yeah,
I mean,
it
unless
just
they're
feels
gonna
rushed
do
right now.
flashbacks and like give
Maybe,
us,
but that's a lot of flashbacks to cover over this amount of characters because you're talking about the
yeah,
Jedi Masters, which they haven't touched on with the Wookiee, Carrie Ann
uh-huh.
Moss's character, really. That Plo Koon look-alike woman, which she is a woman. I didn't know if you knew that.
Oh,
yeah.
But
When
yeah,
I saw the person die, I was like, okay, well, there goes all the people who
yeah,
thought it was Plo Koon. Like,
yeah. Yes. Well, as people scoured the credits and whatever and realized that it was a female. So they, I guess, assumed, or a female actor. So I guess they assumed it was a female Plo Koon, whatever.
hmm.
Same species, not the same character.
yeah.
So, but yeah, it was just so freaking rushed to me that I enjoyed the fight scene for what it was. Fantastic. But for the overall story, which is always what I'm going to go back to, it's like it just right now, I think it was a waste. I could be wrong later on, but right now that's where I'm at. It's just like, what the fuck are they doing?
They've got a
Um,
lot of ground to cover in 3
hell
I
yeah.
feel
episodes.
like we have more questions than answers,
And
and
I feel like
that's
at
the
this
thing that's
point,
bugged me the whole time is like not knowing what the hell's going on, and
yeah,
then feeling like they're not going to have enough time with this to answer the questions to at least give a good foundation to the story
I
and the
have a
people
feeling
they've
that
put in.
the next episode is going to be the return to the flashback episode
yeah.
to get the alternate version of the events and stuff like that. I think it'll be split. I think it might be like half and half
Hmm.
because we're gonna have to have a little bit of like, hey, May's on the ship now, like
Yeah.
headed who knows where, but she's there. But I think it's mostly going to be the alternate version of the episode 3 in a sense, so that we can have like the final 2 episodes, hopefully, to really just kind of focus on wrapping things up in a
Yeah.
sense.
With regard to that, um, ending and having May on the ship, that was my last big point on this episode. And then I do have a few overall, you know, whatever, not necessarily theories, but just kind of like concerns, complaints, and whatnot about this as a whole right now. So my last point on this episode was the fact that I kind of going back to the point of like May's character. One, it's like, why did she even want to go on the ship in the first place? You had Master Soul right there. Even if you didn't want to kill him, you wanted to turn yourself in. what are you doing right now? It's like, you know, you have him to where you can either kill him right now or just you know, surrender. And she's not doing either. And it's kind of just tearing at me a little bit. But the big complaint that I have about that is how in the fuck did Soul not know that was
my
OSHA?
complaint.
Yeah.
Or the other way around. How does the
Literally.
Sith guy not know that it's, you know,
It goes back
not
to now. I kind of viewed
OSHA.
that the Sith part as like, okay, he wanted to kill May. He wanted to fucking gut her.
Yeah.
Maybe he's trying to like turn OSHA.
Yeah,
to
that's
become a
true.
Sith.
I did think
That was-
about that too.
That
Yeah.
was my main thing, thinking about that. So that wasn't much of my concern as it was. Soul's been around OSHA now all this time. If you're, you know, dealing with the Force or whatever, she's radiating a different type of energy here. Is like, how are you not picking this up? You're a Jedi Master. Like,
Yeah.
it's just. I think about this series, and it's like every episode we have, it's like we're gonna open one book. We started with episode 1. We opened one book. This is the Acolyte. And then you're reading through the book and you come across something that doesn't make sense. So now you got to open up another book, and now you got to open up another book. And it's just, we have books all over the table right now. And I don't think they're going to have enough time to fill every single one of what we've talked about tonight. There's going to be stuff that's going to be left out. Maybe it was hype to hype up a second season or something. I just don't know, but it doesn't make any sense right now.
Yeah.
As a conclusion. So overall, with my thoughts on the series, unless you got any other points right now.
No, I was gonna kind of like you touch on possible theories and things like that.
Okay.
And then kind of wrap up.
This is kind of where I'm ending all of my spiels tonight, but I feel like I feel like they did waste this episode, and it could have been used for a finale. Overall, with the season, though, so far, it's felt like watching a very Disney Channel-esque Star Wars, which inherently isn't bad. I kind of felt that same way with Miss Marvel in the MCU, but for what that was, it did it justice because you're following a teenage girl, and you know it fit the mold a little bit better. Not my favorite show from Marvel by any stretch, but it made sense. With this, I feel like, with the exception of the fight scenes and just the brutality that we saw tonight, it's been very cheesy dialogue, and it's been kind of like that Disney Channel-esque acting style, and it just doesn't fit for me for what this story is supposed to be, even what they're building. So that part, plus this is a very minor thing in the grand scheme, but there have been a couple times I've looked and caught just like the cinematography not making sense. One instance of that was when you see OSHA. It was in tonight's episode. You saw OSHA and May looking at each other. The next scene, they're, you know, you see them start walking towards each other, and then it's like a split second. If you rewind it, you'll catch it, but you might not have caught it the first time. As they're walking together, you know, the scene switches, and then magically it's sunrise. I'm like, did it take them 4 hours to fucking walk over there? Like, it to me, it was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, so that was one thing. And then there was another scene where Smilo Ren was fighting Saul, and then it you know, in the middle of a fight, and then you see it cut to May, and then immediately he appears like that. Like I was just like, what he was just fighting him. It just, I don't know. Something didn't work out right there with the cinematography. Someone didn't think about it through. Maybe they cut some scenes in it and they didn't realize it till the final edit, but it was very like pushed together. It probably was cut for time, but overall, that's kind of my whole thing. Everything that I felt has been very whack about the Acolyte. I don't really have any fan theories, so I'll leave that with you. But I did want to touch on one last thing. I don't know if you heard, but I believe, unless the articles I read were bullshit, they canceled season 2. They were planning it, and they did cancel it. So I can only imagine that was due to the, you know, drop in ratings, and shareholders are probably freaking out. I mean, who knows what it is with Disney, but that's what I have been reading. I've heard it from a couple different sources. So
I hadn't seen anything about that, but that's not to say that there isn't any validity to it.
Yeah,
I just hadn't actually come across that myself.
So yeah, so that's all I gotta hear, but I'll leave all the fan theories with you because I'm actually interested to hear what you got to say on this. Not that I haven't been all night, but I just specifically this. I want to hear what you got
No,
cooking.
it's okay. I mean, I've touched on it before, like in the discussions that you and I've had over Messenger and things like that. And I know that I think you kind of alluded to it earlier that you're kind of hoping that this doesn't lead to the whole Plagueis thing.
I at
That
this point I'm hoping not. Yeah.
I don't know. Let's say that this was supposed to be a 2-season show, kind of like Andor, and we were going to get there. And now I don't know what's going to happen if that's the case, and this story doesn't somehow wrap up by the end of this first season, and so things aren't as solidified as they need to be. But as weird as it sounds, I actually think that leading to the whole Plagueis side of things could possibly answer a lot of things and fix a lot of issues with this show, with the story that's been laid out. I think it could fill a lot of holes that we don't understand and don't know, and things like that. The funny thing about it is now I haven't read this book, but there's a Darth Plagueis novel that's now
Yeah.
considered legends.
Yeah.
That is like the gospel for these freaking like die hard Star Wars purists, if you will, that they go up and it's like, oh, but it's contradicting this. It is now Legends. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I understand it's a good story. I understand it is the only story we have to kind of flush out the character of Darth Plagueis, other than the talking point in episode 3. I get it. But it is Legends now.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that they can't use things from that, but they are not adherent to that specific book, and that's the whole reason that Disney did, and Lucasfilm did what it did, because they had 30 years of books written within the Star Wars universe, and between the past, like original trilogy and future timelines, that had they been like adherent to those things, they could have never created anything original. They could have not to mention there's contradictions within the Legends novels just within themselves. I mean, this isn't a contradiction, but this is a bullshit thing. Chewie dies by a moon crashing on him, man.
Mhm.
Like, what the fuck? Like, but you love that? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know the context of how it happens, but that sounds pretty fucking terrible. I'm going to read Legends. I'm collecting Legends books and stuff like that. But I'm getting a little off topic. My point is that what if this is all leading to Darth Plagueis? Even if they cancel season 2 of this, right? But we get some sort of Darth Plagueis tease at the end of this series, and this is going to lead us into maybe a Darth Plagueis series instead of a Acolyte season 2. Like they don't call it Acolyte season 2. They just go straight to like it's Plagueis or Darth Plagueis or whatever they want to call it.
That would be the
Type of thing.
only hope for, I think, the fans' redemption on this show. And I don't even think at that point that the show itself would be redeemed, because it's still going to be looked at as a really wasted buildup for one of the greatest parts of Star Wars in history. Plagueis,
Probably not. But to what I was saying is that, but they actually the reason I brought up the book actually is because with these people that are so diehard and gung ho with it, is there is stuff in that book that they talk about the things that he did and the practices that he made to try and create life, to create that eventually got to the whole Anakin side of things and the lore behind that. And so that's why a lot of people think that that's what we're getting here, is like, let's say, and I'm not saying this is what it is, but like, let's say that, Plagueis was in contact with these witches and they stole some of his, like, ideas or his technology or something like that. And they were manipulating, the Force and the midichlorians or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And they somehow created life, but then he comes through and wipes them all out. Like, or like has his, apprentice or whatever, wipe them all out because of what they took from him. And the last straw is destroying this one thing, but like, or he, he learns from it and he's like, oh, I have that, but I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to create like the Jedi Messiah, but he will become part of my ultimate plan of taking over the Jedi Order and destroying it and things like that. I'm this is another one of those, I'm pulling at straws here, but I'm also like, I'm trying to use the knowledge that I have, even though I don't know everything about Star Wars, and I haven't read every book and things like that, and that sometimes I have to remember of what's legends and what's not. And that's what other people need to do too, is they need to remember that there is legends and there is canon, and it's two separate things. And while they can borrow from legends, or take from legends and bring it to fruition, like they did with Thrawn and a bunch of other things that have been brought into canon now, but they're different from what they were before, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It's all about the execution, which we keep talking about with this show. The execution has not really been there. And that's why I keep saying, with the many discussions that you and I have had, that I've been defending this to a certain degree, but it's not because I think it's the greatest show ever, or that it's the most well done version of what this show could be. It's just because I've been so distraught with people, because it's not just the Acolyte.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's just Star Wars.
Yeah, 100%.
Period.
Yep.
The last couple years has been awful with people, with the way that they treat it, with the way they treat the fandom, the way they treat each other. No one's happy with anything. Like, and if you are
I hate
happy,
to tell you this, but I think it's always been like that. I mean,
you're not wrong. You're
I
absolutely not wrong.
I think we have more content now to bitch about.
Right.
I mean,
that and the internet is a thing. So like,
internet, yeah.
Like, I know that's the fallback, but it's the internet, where we have way more access and way more ability to speak our minds and put the bullshit out there.
I know it's talked about now, but it really was that way with the prequels. Like, I know people, they reference it, but if you didn't live through it, and you probably remember it, I mean, I remember a good chunk of it, being as young as I was, how like it was very scoffed at, especially episode 1, man.
Oh, it was hated. Everything was hated about the prequel.
Hated. Episode 1 specifically. By the time episode 3 came around, at least my friend groups, my friends, we all thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
But episode 1 and episode 2 were very poorly received.
Yeah. Well, that's why I've been saying that this is the closest thing to the prequel era stuff, as far as the way people are treating it and going about the way they talk about it. I have not seen since the prequels. Because even the sequels weren't like to this level.
Yeah.
To an extent, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They not even to this level.
Yeah. I definitely, like, The Last Jedi for me is my absolute least favorite Star Wars movie. As many plot holes as episode 9 does have, which might have been filled in now with novelization and whatever, it's like, I feel like that was still a better Star Wars movie as a whole. I would rewrite it in a heartbeat if I could, and ironically, I would incorporate Plagueis every single episode that was coming out 2015 onward. I was like, this is it. Snoke's Plagueis. Nope. Wasted opportunity. I was like, that was a perfect full circle, and they squandered it.
That's what everybody wanted. That's what everybody wanted.
Yeah, it could have been too, but anyway, like, you look at something like that, and I think even with the sequels, as much as I gripe about them, and as big of a difference as I have with them, I will also say there's not as many plot holes. Episode 9 really had to squish some stuff together because of the death of Carrie Fisher, of course, and the change in direction on the directing side of things. But, even with everything together, I think there's less plot holes so far with episode 9 than with the Acolyte, where there is reason to gripe and complain, but I am 100% on your side at the fact that I think that the fans aren't doing it any justice on their own. They have the right to their opinion. They have the right to complain. But overall, if you're like shaming somebody for their opinion on that shit, like, that's the shit that's got to go, because that's the shit that's toxic, and that's the shit that's going to make somebody get out of this fandom.
Yep.
So
that's the stuff that I just can't. Yeah, that's the stuff that I just can't deal with, and that's what puts me over the edge. And Ashlyn knows this. Like, I'll talk about this, and I will get straight up heated, just talking about this stuff, because and we've been going on for way too long. So we'll have to wrap up eventually. But I know I've talked to you about it, and of course I've talked
Yeah.
to Ashlyn about it. My biggest fault as a Star Wars fan is I am a Star Wars fan.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to
No,
laugh, but
no,
that's so
like
funny. It's not even directed at you. It's just like, you're acknowledging that the fan base sucks was kind of funny to me.
yeah, no,
Like,
it's
I
just
get it. I do
no.
get it.
I'm just like I say it all the time, and I have these conversations with other people as well. It's like, listen, I don't think everything that they create or everything that they release is the greatest thing on earth, but you know
Yeah.
what? If it's Star Wars, I'm probably gonna find something to like about it, to be quite honest with you. Like there's been books I've read that I'm like, I could have done without that. There's been things
Yeah.
I've watched, like we've talked about this. I wasn't really the biggest fan of Andor. I know you were, and there was a lot of people that were, and that's fantastic. I can still appreciate what that is without it being my favorite show or anything like that. But I've said it since the sequels. The sequels are okay. Well, specifically Episode 7. I will die on the hill that is a fantastic Star Wars.
It's a good movie.
It is the movie that got me back into Star Wars because I was a kid when the prequels came out and I could not give a shit about Star Wars at that time because I did not understand what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
I was way too young to understand all the political stuff. And then, of course, you have all the romance stuff with like Episode 2 and whatnot. And I'm like, I can go without that. I'm like 10 years old. I don't give a shit about that. So I don't know.
You
Like,
just had to swing some lightsabers in the front yard with your brother, bro. I mean, like, that's
well,
really how
I mean,
I did. Oh, we were smacking each other's knuckles, bro. They were bleeding.
like most kids, I loved the whole Darth Maul thing just because the
Oh, yeah.
double bladed lightsaber. Like
Hell yeah.
I had that. I was dressed as Maul for Halloween, whatever year that was, and
Yep.
just because of the way he looked, I didn't give a shit about the
Yep.
character at the time, and now he's one of the best Star Wars characters in my opinion. Period.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean it really is the things. Like I am a Star Wars fan to a fault. I will do everything I can to try and find the good where I can. But I'm still like not blinded enough to not be able to handle criticisms or see where things fall short or find the criticisms that need to be addressed and things like that. But as opposed to the toxic fandom that's all they do is look for reasons to complain, or they try and follow the trends of hey, this is being talked about badly now, I should jump on this for views, for clicks, for clout, whatever you want to call it. I
think
can't
that's
get it.
where every fan needs to really do their own digging and do their own research, because there are tons of TikTok videos out right now that are just like, I did see one about Plo Koon. Why the fuck did they put Plo Koon? It's like, motherfucker, just scroll to the credits. You'll see it's not Plo Koon. They put Ki-Adi-Mundi in there. That's true, but it's not fucking, so people will grab at anything. It's about kind of deciphering. You got to do your own research. In this instance, very similar to politics, you got to go with what your heart actually wants instead of what the crowd's telling you to do. Do your own research, make your own assumptions, but you don't gotta follow every trend. I'm 100% on board with you.
Ashlyn, do you have any points to this before we wrap up?
Just don't be shitty people. Like, let people like what they want to like. Like,
don't be a dick.
Exactly. Like, this is such a great fandom to be a part of. And the problem is these people that are going around and just jumping on this bandwagon for clout and everything else, and the people that are sitting here and, review bombing just to do it and shit. What they don't think about in the background is that if you keep doing this shit, you're never going to get any Star Wars moving forward if you're just constantly shitting on everything that they put out or attacking the actors or the writers or the fans of it. It's just like what happened. Andrew brings it up all the time with Solo. They bombed the shit out of that movie, and in as a repercussion of that, now there's no Lando movie or no Lando series, which everyone was ready for because you went out.
Well, and Boba Fett became a series, and a bunch of every Star Wars story got scrapped because of one
movie.
failure.
So
and
it's like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's like not everything is going to be perfect. It's not going to live up to the hype. It's not going to be everything you hoped it was going to be. But at the end of the day, you can't call yourself a fan of this, world and this series if you hate everything except for the original three movies, Like, there's so much more to Star Wars than that.
Yep.
I mean, I'm looking at 3 bookshelves full right now. Like, so, no matter what it is that's your bad and what you like, that's great. You wouldn't want somebody to rip you apart for what you liked about the fandom. So don't go around being hateful and just plain out nasty to people in the fandom for no reason. We all love Star Wars, no matter which part of Star Wars that is. And it's okay, like Andrew said, to not like something, but don't just be so awful to people because of what they like might be different than what you like. Like, just at the end of the day, just goddamn be nice to each other. This is the awful, shitty world that we're having to live in.
Amen.
Like,
yep.
Well, I think that is a good a spot as any to call it a day. I think we've had a very long, riveting discussion about not just the Acolyte, but just Star Wars at large and the things that need to be addressed. And obviously, we're not the only ones talking about this. We're not the end all for the conversation. Like, we're one very small part of a very very large fandom, even beyond Star Wars, just geek culture in general. And all I ask, like Ashlyn says, is just try and be nicer to people. Just be nice to yourselves too. Like, honestly, like, allow yourself to enjoy things sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, just because there's so much negativity in the world without you having to put extra out there. And you know, I don't know what else to say, but it's been a great show. It's been a long show, but it's been a great show. Before we jump off, let's go around. Brandon, let the people know where they can find you.
Venture Authentics on all platforms. Don't really have anything in the month of July coming up. Might be doing something in Chicago. We'll see. I don't know. It rhymes with Bark Hamill. I think. Yeah. So yeah, maybe. We'll see what's up with that. But that's if I do it, that's gonna be my next event. Otherwise, I got a little bit of a wait till August for Tampa Bay Comic Con. So
right, and then it like goes straight into the fall with a couple.
Yeah,
of
and then it's full speed ahead, and I'm fucked.
It just never ends.
we might be doing SuperCon in Miami. That is in July, so there might be one July event. But I'm on a standstill right now, which is kind of where I need to be right now. I've went really hard the last few months, so I'm enjoying the break. So
feel that. Ashlyn, how about you?
You guys can find me at BookBrat90 on Instagram, TikTok, and yep, we got fun stuff coming up from our trip in Vegas. Once my video editor finishes editing all our videos together. So we have some fun stuff with that coming up. So
yeah, I don't know who he is, but he needs to get on the ball. So yeah, he needs a pay raise. That's what it is. That's
right.
You can look around the room for that pay raise, sweetheart.
Damn, got him.
Ouch. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And of course, you can find me at Andrew is Losing on pretty much all social media. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. Posted some new videos recently with some of the autograph collection updates, things like that. Also, of course, be sure to subscribe to the channel here at Retroactive on YouTube. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at RetroactivePod. Be sure to like, subscribe to keep up to date with everything we have going on. With that, I think we're going to call it a day, guys. Once again, just be nice to each other. Do your best. Have fun. Enjoy things. And we will see you next time.